Well, good morning, and welcome to the Wisdom of the Soul. This is, if I'm correct in my counting, class number 15, and we will continue to hold forth each and every Sunday without any planned exceptions. Something may come up, but essentially we're going to be here every week, and I want to remind you that the link, at least for the remainder of this calendar year, will remain the same. It's likely that at the beginning of next year, I'll create a new Zoom room and we'll get a new link at that time. But um, unless something unforeseen comes up, the link will not change. So you can stash it away someplace, keep it in your notes, or I think notes is what it's called on a Macintosh. On Windows, I think there's a program called OneSheet that's much easier than word processing to keep little notes and hyperlinks, and I'm sure phones have something like that as well. Whatever helps you out. Though I will continue to send a little email reminders the day before, usually on Saturday at some point. So let's begin with our opening meditation. We're going to talk today more about emotional intelligence. We'll touch a little bit on what's called the middle way and what I often refer to as the heart's path to the soul. This is the wisdom of the soul. So, why is it that the emotional nature, our emotional intelligence, is the portal to spiritual development? In other words, why is it impossible to think your way to spiritual development? It's a it's a path of the heart, and what do we mean by that? And what do we mean, for that matter, by emotional intelligence? We'll discuss that a little bit today, too. At the top of the hour, in about 54 minutes, we'll take your questions. So make mental notes or maybe even actual notes because I really love your questions. All right, so get comfortable, sit up straight, not rigid, but nicely balanced. Close your eyes and take 2 or 3 nice, slow, deep breaths, pausing for just a beat on each end of the breathing cycle. So as you inhale, pull in strength and power, pause for just a beat. And as you exhale, just as slowly through the nose or the mouth, feel a letting go feeling. Inhalation, if at all possible, should be through the nose. And feel the letting go as you relax. One more time. And as you allow your breathing to be assumed by what we call the involuntary nervous system, turn your breathing over to autopilot. Create and sense an awareness of slowly scanning your body in one direction or the other, sweeping slowly, creating a sense of letting go from head to toe and then from the bottom of your feet to the top of your head. Do that 3 or 4 times, as if the very act of scanning the full length of your body with your awareness allows you to let go even more. Feeling safe, feeling relaxed, again, eyes closed. Feel the chair supporting you. Remind yourself the chair does not need your cooperation. You can completely let go and feel your feet on the floor. Bring your awareness to the bottom of your nose, either the tip of your nose or perhaps on that septum, that ridge line of cartilage between the nostrils. And simply watch your body breathing itself. Watch the natural ebb and flow of your breathing. Be curious about it. Allow yourself to be fascinated as you identify and merely remind yourself that you are not the breather. You just did that. You could exert your volition and hold your breath or increase the rate of your respiration. Right now, the exercise is to allow your body to breathe itself and identify as the watcher, the observer or the witness of your body breathing itself. This practice alone, known as Vipassana or insight meditation, is not only a sufficient exercise unto itself. If you did nothing else for 15 minutes, but watch your body breathing itself, your thoughts will slow. The mind's petitioning for your attention through distraction and diversion will be reduced naturally and normally as you feel safer and more relaxed. The gaps between the thoughts begin to dilate. But our goal is not to concentrate our attention, but to simply be aware when the mind drags you off in some thoughtful direction. And as soon as you're aware that you're thinking of something else, whatever that may be, perhaps an external noise, like something going on in the room or in your home or outside, but you're able to hear it anyway. Simply note that your mind has drifted. Identify the irrelevance of the thought, and gently bring your awareness back to that little point on the bottom of your nose where you observe the body breathing itself, all by itself. Or perhaps it's an internal feeling, some minor physical discomfort, or maybe not so minor. Or it may just be some discursive thought and you realize the discomfort is actually mental, as if there's some kind of apprehension in your mind about not thinking and what might happen if you stopped worrying. Simply identify it. Say to yourself, of course, this is what the mind does. Let it go and come back to watching your body breathe. Do this for just a minute, just 1 minute, until you hear my voice again. You see, just as arteries and veins and tiny thread-like capillaries dilate as you release muscular tension in your body, so too the mind, which is our mental and emotional nature, also dilates. It opens. To open your mind and be more aware. To open your heart and be more loving is to expand greatly your ability to understand thoughts and feelings, to find their meaning and significance. For as you relax, as you identify as the being rather than the doing, separation dissolves. Lines, boundaries, and borders dissolve. This or that begins to occur to you as this and that. Multiplicity is recognized for its beautiful diversity, and yet it becomes increasingly clear as your awareness expands that this is a universe. Una, meaning one. Verse, something spinning, spinning around. One universe, one thing, slowly spinning. Like an elegant dance. The universe waltzes so gracefully. And we can experience that elegance and that grace, that peace, that love, and that happiness by letting go of everything that is not that. There is nothing to attain, nothing to accomplish. Nothing that needs to be done to realize who you are and your place in the universe. Each one of us essential. Every tree, every flower, every insect. Every rock, every drop of water, every molecule of air and its various gases, essential components of one peaceful, elegant dance. Feel that grace and that elegance. Imagine moving through the rest of your day without worry, without concern. Let that be your base, your home base, like base camp. The foundation of being is peace. The awareness that expands as we honor that peace, that consciousness is love, the source of our happiness, innate, natural, always residing within. It never abandons you, though we may abandon it. We may forget. Ours is not to seek and find love, but to let go of everything that is not love. Peace, happiness, healing, understanding. Simply form the intention to bring this awareness and this set of feelings with you back to the waking state. And I'm just going to count slowly to 3 to help us do that together. And so as I begin 1, reorient yourself by remembering what you're doing and where you are. 2, feel the chair supporting you and the floor beneath your feet. And if rising up slowly toward the waking state. 3 is eyes open, wide awake, back in the room, wide awake, back in the room, feeling fine, feeling better than before, all rested and refreshed and revitalized, restored and renewed. All those words. Nice big slow deep breath is a great way to cap that off. And maybe a stretch. All right. Again, 15 minutes of just watching your breath or imagining, as we often do in these exercises, going to a beautiful place of perfect peace in your mind's eye and sitting in the wilderness. If you ever wonder what it's like not to think or not to judge, not to compare and contrast, and not to worry, go to nature. You could go to a city park, or those of us here in Southern California can head to the beach and look out toward the water. Or, go for a walk outside of town, down a country lane, or in some open pasture, or go to the woods, the wilderness. Find a place where you can just sit. And you'll find all the judging, all the comparing and the contrasting, all the worry and the doubt, the nervousness and the anxiety just falls away. And you'll begin to realize that our stresses, our fears, are all inventions of the mind. It's all made up to the point that sometimes we feel like we've got to hold our bodies together, that if we didn't hold on for dear life, body parts would fly off in all directions. It's like the scary roller coaster when you're a little kid and you got to hold on for dear life. And then pretty soon you start seeing people who ride the roller coaster with their hands up in the air shouting whoopee. And they're not even holding on at all. They're not sick when they get off. They run around to get in line and do it again. It's all the same ride, though. You see, it's whether you love it or whether you're terrified by it is all a matter of our perception, and therein lies reality. It's all perception. I want to talk today a little about, well, more about emotional intelligence, but a little bit about the path that goes from emotional intelligence to the wisdom of the soul. What is that path? The allegory of the journey, the quest, uh, is everywhere in our literature. That's what an adventure is, to venture forth from. If I remember my Latin, the prefix ad is away or away from. A venture that takes you away, adventure. To venture forth into the world. To walk that path, to go on that journey. It's a strong allegory because it's really what's happening. It's a cyclic journey. It's a journey out and then home again, like the prodigal son, if you know that story. But let's talk about it in a little more detail. What's it really involve? What does it mean to put our feet on the path and to devote ourselves to a search for understanding? There's a little background noise. If you guys would all check your mute in the lower left, make sure your mics are muted. Um, so let's talk about, first of all, and I guess my favorite term for this comes from Assagioli. Roberto Assagioli was a psychotherapist. He was a theosophist. Um, I believe he passed away about 50 years ago, maybe 40 or 35 or 40. But he's essentially a contemporary of ours. And he coined the phrase divine homesickness. I'd like you to, if you're taking notes, I'd like you to write that down. Divine homesickness. I think it accounts for the subtle ache in our hearts, for the longing, for the belief that brought you to this class, that there's something more. If only you could put your finger on it. Beyond earning and spending, beyond producing and consuming, beyond friends, beyond partying, beyond diversions and recreation and entertainment and enjoying your life. There's a sense that there's something deeper and much more meaningful here. I think that's why people turn to religion, because we are looking for some guidance. And philosophy is too arcane and too esoteric for most people. They don't have the time. We have to work and go to school. I sometimes think of Alice in her Adventures in Wonderland, where there's a point where she's running as fast as she can and getting nowhere. And the Red Queen says to Alice, that's exactly the point. Just, you have to run as fast as you can just to stay where you are. Of course, that's not true, but doesn't it feel that way? It certainly feels that way. My God, I'm swimming as hard as I can, just barely keeping my head above water. And if I don't keep treading, I'm going to sink like a rock. Then you meditate and you stop treading and you stop running. And not only do you not sink, you begin to fly, as if you dropped your load. You put down the baggage. You've cast off a sandbag or two, and you're now beginning to float up effortlessly. I think, frankly, the desire to fly is part of this divine homesickness too. So there is a discontent, isn't there? A dissatisfaction that is often quite subtle. Sometimes it's very oppressive and feels very heavy. But even on our best days, when things are going really well, there is this subtle ache, this longing, this desire nature. And yet one of the truths, one of the key principles of the wisdom traditions of the world, mysticism, probably the best way I know to talk about it. The mystery, the experience. This is not about fellowship or worship, but the experience of being human, of being a human being rather than a human doing, to really understand yourself and explore the nature of this individuality and, almost paradoxically, its connection to all that is. We are at once the one and the many. We are both unity and diversity. I know it's a paradox. This longing, this desire for meaning and purpose in our lives is what motivates us. It's really a good thing. It's just not going to be found in the world. It's not going to be an accomplishment of money or property that you've acquired. I'm sure you've noticed this key principle, this cornerstone, that our desires are never fulfilled, at least not for very long. What a game. And what a liberating realization. Oh my God, it's so true that as soon as I get something I want, it's like, yippee! Whatever it is, could be, a nice brand new car, a relationship with that person that you were so attracted to, a new job, a raise, a clean bill of health from your doctor, a baby's born in the family. It could be, anything wonderful. Yippee! My life's fulfilled. I finally got everything I want. It's like you finally completed your to-do list. I don't know that anyone has ever completed their to-do list. It's like cleaning your house. It just never gets done. As soon as you finish one end, the other side of the house where you began is dusty again. You got to start all over. It's never ending. Keep that vacuum handy. Keep that dust rag, that feather duster nearby. And so it is with the to-do list. And so it is with desire in general. As soon as you get all of this stuff that we really, 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 really want, I've got to have that. Boy, then my life will be happy. You feel fulfilled for how long? A week at most. Maybe a couple of days. Maybe an hour or less. And slowly creeping in as if on cat's feet comes a new desire. Uh-oh. Something else isn't right in my world. It's not enough. Uh-oh. I thought I had it. Oh, for a minute there, I almost reached the mountaintop of bliss and satisfaction and contentment. I was so close. In fact, I thought I was even there. But here it comes, the dissatisfaction. And it's spiritual. It's obviously not physical. There are billionaires. $1 billion is $1,000,000,000. You'd think that would be enough. Hell, 10 or 15 million. How much do you need? Much less $1,000,000,000. That's 1 billion. Now there's people with 10 billion, 20 billion. Are they happy? Sometimes. But they're not that different from the rest of us. There's something gnawing deep inside that says this is not enough. And so they do what is necessary. They crush a competitor, or they buy them out. They do whatever is necessary to get more money, property, stuff. I think we know the futility of that rat race or that treadmill. What we're not familiar with, and what I'd like to introduce us to, is why that's so, and what's underneath it. That it's never enough. Whatever it is. That desire is a trap. It's a trick to create a false sense of meaning and purpose in a physical world. And it's fed, obviously, fed by everyone who wants power. Money power, authority power, prestige and status power, whatever. And we line up like lemmings. We buy into it. We march to the beat of that drum because we don't know any other way to fulfill that desire. Your desire will not be fulfilled. Give it up. Now, there is something called an aspiration. To desire and to aspire, I'd like to suggest you consider as very different concepts. Because if I desire to give up my desire, isn't that just another desire? I mean, isn't that catch-22 in all of this? How do I give up desire if that then becomes my new desire? I'd like you to think of desire as being horizontal, and your aspiration to aspire is being vertical. So a desire is for things of this world. I desire a relationship with that person. I desire to play a better game of golf or tennis. I desire a better job. I need a raise. I deserve a raise. I need more money. Gas is $7 a gallon. What are you going to do? I desire this. I desire that. It's all horizontal. It's all this stuff in this world. And that's what I'm suggesting. If we can't give it up completely, at least be aware that it's your desire that's making you unhappy. Because you're chasing something you're never going to get, at least not for long. And all of that hope and all of that enthusiasm that we invest in our desire is going to make us miserable when we either don't get it or when we get it, but the fulfillment doesn't last. And how long does it take us to get hip to the trick? Oh my God, this is ridiculous. That I think there's a there there. That I still think there must be some there there. And there is no there there, not on the horizontal. But to aspire, aha, maybe this is the way out. Don't you see? To aspire is to move up the path, which is, up the mountain, which is a spiral. Remember, all spirit, all energy is sporadic. It goes around and around and around on one plane, but it also moves up. This is aspiration. To be better, to be more. More what? More wealthy? Well, only in the broadest sense of not just prosperity in the physical sense, but health, relationships are so important. But not as something to have and hold, but something to experience and let go of. Love is letting go, all holding on is fear. To aspire to understand ourselves better and to realize what we're for. Just to understand, that word understanding. Call it awareness, call it consciousness, expanded awareness, higher consciousness. What does that mean? It means it's like an elevated perspective where there's a greater context, where your horizons are broader and broader and you see the bigger picture. You're slowly pulling back or zooming out and whoa, I understand. I'm beginning to see what's going on here. To aspire is our spiritual expansion, our growth as human beings, spiritual beings in animal bodies. That's what we are. Beings of light and love, energy beings, an organized matrix like an electromagnetic field of energy living in a meat body made out of what you've had to eat. And we know from basic physics that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Conservation of energy, right? Energy will change form, but middle school science and physics, we learn you can't use up energy. You can't destroy it. Consider that the amount of heat and light that's released when you burn a log in the fireplace is exactly equal to the heat and the light from the sun that grew that tree. That part of that tree that became a log that you burned. The log was like a storage facility. And you set it on fire, it oxidizes. That's what fire is, oxidation. And it changes form, but you don't have more or less energy. The energy is constant. If you are energy, you are immortal. Except that we walk around in meat bodies, which clearly are mortal. See? Because of this law of impermanence we've touched on in the past and we'll talk about in the future, nothing lasts. Everything is in constant flux, but not only is it constantly changing, it has its ebb and flow. It's growing and it's dying, and it's growing and it's dying. And we call that living. Every cell in your body save for a handful of nerve cells, as I understand it, is replaced in roughly a 7-year period. Well, so that means at my age I've had what? 10 bodies, 10, 10 completely different bodies. So I'm obviously not my body, if you think about it. I must be some organized energy field around which this food congeals. And that's miraculous and wondrous and almost impossible to comprehend because we're so identified with our meat bodies and so convinced that we're separated from everything. And we spend our lives reaching out for connection, reaching out to hold hands, to get a hug, just some simple acknowledgement, some acceptance, some appreciation, some love, as if it comes from others. Won't you love me? You're empty and lonely. I'm empty and lonely. Maybe we can fill each other up out of our emptiness. This pitcher is empty. This vessel is empty. Maybe they can fill each other. Oh, that doesn't work. That's desire. That's not aspiration. Aspiration is to seek in a vertical sense the true source of our being. And that's the journey. The divine homesickness. The core of all of our desires is to know ourselves and our relationship to the source, that we might then live a truly fulfilled life. Again, not that there is a there, but increasingly fulfilled and meaningful and purposeful, knowing yourself, growing yourself, and expressing that uniqueness in loving and creative ways in service to other people. That's the only hope we have of finding any sense of fulfillment. It's not by the dog chasing its own tail, the desire nature. Give me this, give me that. So you may hear a lot in philosophy, especially Eastern philosophy, about releasing your desire, giving up your desire. But again, doesn't that become a desire? What do we do instead of desire? Instead of chasing our tails in this elusive, never fulfilling treadmill existence. Now, obviously, we have bills to pay every 30 days. You got to sit down and pay some bills, so there's got to be some income. I mean, even the monks and the nuns and the gurus and the swamis and the mystics that go off to Himalayan caves and meditate, they still rely on the villagers to bring them rice and vegetables, right? Somebody's got to care for them if they don't care for themselves. But talk about minimalism. I mean, that's really minimizing your needs. What do we really need? This is the path. And the path from the desire nature in our human existence to awareness of ourselves as souls, to replace this silly idea that we are human beings with a soul and understand ourselves as spiritual beings with a body. let's get the order right. Let's get the pony in front of the cart here. You don't have a soul. You do not have a soul. You are a soul. What is that? It's an emanation of the divine source. It's akin to a wave that has the appearance of being individuated or separated from the other waves, but clearly is the ocean. And I've mentioned this allegory before. It's rich, and you'll come across it quite often in spiritual reading, that the cloud too, the water vaporizes off the ocean, goes up to the sky, forms clouds. The cloud has an ocean body. The rain, the sleet, the hail, the snow is still the ocean. The mountain lake, the dewdrop on the flower, the sap in the tree, the mountain stream, the broad river, they're all the ocean. And so too are we. We live as separated fingers. See, the thumb is not the first finger. I'm a guitar player. I know what these fingers are for on the guitar. They're all very different fingers. But it's one hand and one arm. And you say, oh, but I got another one. Yeah, well, then one body. Right? Don't be the finger. Be the body. We struggled with the idea in the past of how do we talk about who I am if I'm more than my name or more than my occupation or more than my gender or my religion or my ethnicity or my nationality or my loyalty to the university I graduated from or whatever. If I'm more than all of that, what am I? I'm the one thing. I am the one life. I am divinity itself, but obviously you can't share that with your friends. You can't go around saying I am God. Oprah said that and got in big trouble. She thinks she's God. Well, what isn't? What could exist outside of divinity? You see, unless you're trapped in that monotheistic idea of divinity as a being, a superhuman on a cloud. That's why religion is being replaced by what people define as spiritual but not religious. They feel that longing, they feel that divine homesickness, they feel that dissatisfaction, that there's got to be something more. But the religion is 2,000 years old, written by Bronze Age scribes. When we thought the sun revolved around the earth and the stars were holes in the sky where heaven shone through. And we knew nothing of dinosaurs, or people today believe the earth is 6,000 years old and the dinosaurs are God playing a trick on us. The way to put our feet on the path that takes us from this separate existence as human beings, desiring, toward an aspiration to be souls incarnate. That path begins with emotional intelligence, with understanding the meaning of your emotional feelings. And obviously they fall into two categories. We're just a couple of minutes away from the top of the hour, so I'm going to wrap this up in 4 or 5 minutes and go to your questions. So if you have a question, and please, I can do this solo, but I would much rather hear your questions. I've set a third of this 90-minute class aside for your questions and or comments, and to help you create some focus just type it in the chat box and Melinda will call on you. Then we can skip this raised hand stuff. Uh, there is an ability in the bottom toolbar here of Zoom to raise your hands, and you can do that if you want, but it's best just to compose the question concisely by typing it in the chat box, and then Melinda will call upon you in order. So you may want to be thinking about that now. The meaning and purpose of primarily our negative feelings, so-called negative feelings. We call them negative because they hurt, because they irritate, because they frustrate. Sometimes they humiliate. They hurt. That's why we call them negative. But they have enormous value. So I always feel uncomfortable when I talk about negative feelings. They're hurtful feelings. I don't know that they're really all that negative, since it's like the gauges and lights on the dashboard of your car that indicate some sort of problem. Are those negative gauges or, negative warning lights? Covering the dashboard over with heavy brown wrapping paper does not guarantee that nothing will go wrong with the car. And so repressing your emotions or creating diversions or self-medicating or whatever your strategy is obviously doesn't work. The feeling gets stronger. The heartache grows stronger. The hurt goes stronger because it wants your attention. Emotions that hurt are just like physical pain that hurts. You'd rather not feel it, but you'd be a lot worse off if you didn't. Pain is your friend. It teaches you. It shows you. It alerts you, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain. I know we don't want to feel it. So how about learning through meditation to expand your awareness so the subtle feeling becomes apparent to you? The anger, the hostility, the belligerence, the contempt, the nastiness, the hateful, even apathy is a hurtful feeling. You know, it hurts to be numb. Do you know being numb hurts? That's just your brain trying to get your attention. Something's wrong here. Or we can say your heart or the mind calling out to you, pay attention. Something needs attention, course correction. Whereas the positive feelings, so-called, the love, the joy, the peace, the happiness, the fulfillment, appreciation of beauty, humor, joy, happiness for no reason. These feelings are simply saying, stay the course. Keep doing what you're doing, whatever that is. This is evidence. It's not just some sort of reward. It's like a feedback loop that says, you're doing great. Just keep walking down the center here. Keep doing whatever you're doing. If this gave you pleasure and made you feel good, authentically, genuinely, then keep doing that, whatever that is. So positive feelings don't really need to be processed or understood, do they? They don't need to be interpreted or translated. They are what they are. Just keep doing this. Makes you happy to play a musical instrument, play your musical instrument. If it makes you happy to be of service to other people in this way, then keep doing that. Okay? Some might say, well, If I pursue happiness, won't I be selfish? No, you won't. It's a fool's errand. You won't be happy, at least not for long, maybe in the short term if you're selfish. I got the whole piece of cake, and I didn't have to share it with anybody. Yeah, well, that lingers on the lips for a few moments and then it's gone. That's not lasting happiness. What is lasting happiness? Taking someone's fear away, putting a smile on their face, connecting with eye contact, and hearing someone express their appreciation to you. Thank you. Wow. It means a lot to me. That lasts forever. That doesn't fade. That's an energy that is indeed immortal. Love and happiness. You know, when I say nothing lasts, love and happiness and peace, uh, the energy component, the spirit, the truth, the core of the essence of who we really are, that does last. That is permanent and can be developed and can be pursued. That's what we aspire to. Desire won't take you there. So we're going to talk more in the future about how to process a negative feeling. What do we do with our anger? How do we dissemble it into its various components and take some ownership of it? Because the first hurdle is to see an emotion as a response, not obsess on the stimulus, who or what caused it, to such a degree that we fail to recognize that the actual feeling is a response. And so it's very personal. And so there's a part of your brain that's hardwired, hardwired, the amygdala, that's hardwired to protect you from danger, and that's the part that has you obsessing on, he made me feel this way, she did this to me. If they hadn't said that or done that, I wouldn't feel this way. Or sometimes it's the obverse. If they had done this, it would be better. The crime against you was not what they did, but what they didn't do. Not what they said, but what they should have said and failed to say. But to obsess on the stimulus is to ignore the response, don't you see? And your ability to recognize, identify, and understand that response is called responsibility. Oh my God, is that what that word means? Accountable, to be accountable, to be responsible, is to take that initial hit. Ow, that hurt. That was nasty. God, I don't know why they would say that to me. That hurts my heart. But instead of getting all defensive and reactive and reflexive in our behavior, as soon as possible, we reorient ourselves and say, why did that hurt? What part of me thinks that may be true? What part of me does not understand myself well enough that I can't just reject that insult out of hand? No, I'm not stupid. I may not be Einstein, but I'm not stupid. So this person who just called me stupid, how could that hurt? Unless I bought into it, unless I was somewhat confused. You see? These messages, you're not enough for me, these attacks, these criticisms that hurt us so deeply, cause so much pain, especially among people we love the most. The nastiest words are said to between people who have the most love for each other, because they're the most vulnerable and the most open. It's so easy to hurt someone who loves you and trusts you and respects you. And if you need them to hurt to demonstrate how much you hurt, you're just going to keep hurting others, and they're going to keep hurting you. And there's no way out of that except to turn your attention from what stimulated the emotion to the feeling as a response that reveals you. And we're going to talk about how to do that. Because unless and until we can manage our heartache, we're not going to have the peace, the, the awareness, the consciousness that we need to move up that spiral path to aspire to an expanded identity, a new and elevated perspective of ourselves as eternal beings of love and light with something very, very special to offer. I know it's a paradox that we're each diverse. We have fingerprint evidence and DNA proof of our uniqueness, a universe that won't even replicate snowflakes or grains of sand, no two flowers exactly alike. The universe bends over backwards, so to speak, to avoid duplication. There's meaning in that. There's a reason for that. What you bring to this world is unique. That's why we know that you are essential. It's like a piece of the jigsaw puzzle. Every one of those pieces is a different shape. But if one piece is missing, the puzzle is not whole. And most of us are missing in action. You see? Because we're so busy with this desire nature. No wonder we have to be born again and again and again and again and again. Maybe this could be the last trip through. Maybe there's a greater adventure on another level, on another plane, where we're much more aware and don't have to suffer what we suffer down here in these animal bodies. There's so much more, but I think not only due to the constraints of time, but I just think this is a good place to go to the questions. And again, next week we'll talk more about exactly how do I take responsibility for my emotions. That is, see my emotional feelings as a response to what's been done to me, or a response to the condition that has arisen in my life, and learn the message that that emotional symptom represents. And it's simply by understanding the heartache, the anger, the fear, the contempt, the hostility, that it vaporizes. All it wants is to be understood. This is true in any argument you've ever had. You thought you needed to win. You thought the person that disagreed with you had to lose. You did not want to win. You just thought you wanted to win. What you really want is understanding. If somebody says, I understand how you feel, you don't care. You don't care if they agree with you or not. That's all you wanted, was to be understood. So it is with all of your emotional pain. It just wants to be understood. It just wants to feel safe. It's a part of you that's frightened and wants comforting and wants to be understood. It's really quite simple. Now, the process, how do we do that? We're going to have to develop our intuition. Again, logic is not going to do it. We can't think about our feelings. I'm sure you've noticed that doesn't work. So, what is intuition? How do we develop it as a way of understanding what our feelings mean so that they vaporize and then onto the. It's a lot like a video game. You reach a certain level, then you get to pass on to the next level. Or school. You know, you finish junior high school, you graduate, you get to go on to the high school. Right?
Michael, we do have 2 questions.
Good. Oh my, did I lose track of the time? I'm sorry. Is it really 12 after? Go ahead, Mindy.
Pamela wonders, I am confused about desire.
Yeah, of course. Is that the extent of the question?
Yes.
Yeah, probably. My internet is acting up, so I may not have heard all the information. But I am a little bit confused on desire because isn't it our birthright to desire what we want, a relationship, or, for example, a relationship, putting it out there in the universe and it being manifest?
Yeah, sure, as long as you understand that it will not be fulfilling. That desire, if it is attained, will be fulfilling only for a very short period of time and then replaced by another desire. As long as you're hip to the trick that you're that having your desires fulfilled is not satisfying for very long, then there's a point in your maturity where you step back and say, I'm on a carousel here, a carousel from hell, a treadmill, a rat race. Even if I'm getting everything I desire, new desires keep coming up. So, where is the ultimate fulfillment if not in, to use the current parlance, manifesting my desires? I teach people to do this. There's nothing wrong with desire as long as you understand that it's going to be ultimately unfulfilled. That real lasting fulfillment will never come from desire in the horizontal sense. Now, to desire to make someone happy, to desire to help them feel accepted or peaceful, that's not a desire, that's an aspiration. And the laws of manifestation, the law of attraction, so called, the secret, as it's come to be called in New Age parlance, is usually limited to material stuff. And that's all I'm saying. That's the distinction I'm making between desire and aspire. So if what we desire is to be better people, more loving, more virtuous, to pursue virtue, and that includes loving kindness and compassion and empathy. Those are aspirations. That is fulfilling. But you say, I need a car. I'd like a car that starts when I push the button. I'd like some shelter, a roof that doesn't leak, some decent clothes, nutritious, wholesome food. I mean, we could say that's of the desire nature. The question is, when is enough enough? And so this is where moderation or the middle path comes in, which we'll talk more about the middle path. Just understand that there are certain basics that we need to survive in this world. Again, to eat, to sleep, to get around, to certain basic needs, but excesses of that does not fulfill you. Like, well, if only I had a decent car and a house and someone who loved me and a great job and income security, and then I would be fulfilled. No, you wouldn't. You'd still have this ache that might lead you, if you're really successful and willing to do whatever is necessary, even crush other people. You could be a multimillionaire, you could be a billionaire, but you'd still have this emptiness, you'd still have this ache in your heart, this divine homesickness, because you don't know who you are. You're not just a consumer. So I support you, and I hope your desires are fulfilled. Just know, Pamela, that fulfillment will never last. That beyond desire is the aspiration to know yourself, to grow yourself, and to express yourself in loving kindness in service to other people. That's the best condensation I can do of what we talked about today.
That's
So
great. Yeah.
that helped.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. This next question ties in, I think. It's from Bob. Regarding this idea that we really, really need that great car or that great possession, then when we get it, the satisfaction of owning it eventually ceases to exist. I understand that and have experienced that reality up close for sure. The one exception to that, at least for me, has been the acquisition of a musical instrument that I really wanted, guitar, piano. I have an idea why that is, perhaps the connection between music and the soul, but I'm interested in Michael's take on that. It's from Bob.
About music, huh? I um, I was sitting in a class taught by a Buddhist teacher recently, and she was talking about the precepts. In Buddhism, there are certain, I guess this is where it starts looking like a religion. There are certain precepts or rules or tenets that a good Buddhist will follow, will accept. And then and that's usually 5 or 7 precepts, and then there are 12 precepts or 15 precepts or 26 precepts. Depends on the particular school of Buddhism that you study, that become much more severe, and these are for the nuns and the monks. But one of the basic precepts is no music, and I took issue with her. And Buddhists are encouraged to do this. You're allowed to challenge, unlike religions. You're allowed to, in fact, you're encouraged to challenge the teacher. And those people who prepare for a devotional life as a monk or a nun will engage in prolonged debates. It's really encouraged. It's one of the more refreshing things I like about it. So I laid into her. I said, I have a real issue with this no music. I said, to me, music is love. Music is the vibration of the universe. We've talked about spirit, the word spirit being rooted in the Latin spiro, or breath. Spirit means breath. Spirit, in a physical sense, is energy. So whether we think of it as breath or energy, it vibrates. Energy vibrates. That's what it does. It has amplitude. It has frequency. Those are the 2 basic qualities of energy. It vibrates. It has peaks and troughs. It has a high point and a low point. If it's going to vibrate, it's going to go back and forth, right? Has a yin and a yang to it. And depending on the frequency, in music, this is pitch. So we look at the keys on the piano. Each one of those triggers a hammer that hits a string that is a slightly different length. And because it's a different length, it vibrates. I know you know this, Bob, but it vibrates at a different frequency, and so we hear a different sound. And then some of these, like an octave, is an exact multiple. The A above, the A below middle C is 440, so 7 notes up. There's another A that's exactly 880. And an octave below 440 would be 220. It's mathematically quite beautiful. And then there's the fifth. And then there's the third and the fifth. Makes a beautiful major chord. Or flat the third, you get a minor chord. It's quite beautiful. It's all mathematically resonant. So, what's a more beautiful expression of spirituality than music? Not just melody, but harmony. When I was living in Maui for 5 years and I studied slack key guitar, uh, I found out that Hawaiians never knew about harmony until they were invaded by Christian missionaries. And one of the things that uh, caused them to believe there was some credibility in this new religion that they were being brought, Christianity, was the fact that they sang in harmony. And it just blew their minds because they had no stringed instruments. Hawaiians only had rattles and drums and a slapstick. That was basically it. Rattles, drums, and slapsticks. That's all they had. So maybe they knew how to, hum a tune or whistle, but they didn't know harmony. And when they heard this harmony, they just freaked out. And then the Paniolos came, the cowboys from Mexico and California, to help them with the cattle, and they brought the guitar. And out of that comes Hawaiian guitar and slide guitar and lap steel and all of that. But that's, only 150 years old. So my point is, music has a transcendent nature because and music is love, and music is spirit, and music is beautiful and transcendent. I'm repeating myself now because it is an expression of love. It's an expression of spirituality. This whole universe vibrates, it dances, it sings. It's a celebration of life. And yeah, I don't suppose listening to death metal is going to raise your kundalini as much as maybe, Joni Mitchell or some nice jazz tune. But, there's different kinds of music. It's hard to generalize. And is that even music? But if it lifts your soul and lifts your spirit, why not? And I, she didn't acknowledge my point, but that was okay. I felt good about having raised it. That's my feeling. A lot of fundamentalist religions, no music, no dancing, too carnal, too much fun, right? Dancing is a sin. You remember Footloose. And fundamentalist Christianity and the fundamentalist Muslims, same thing. No music, no dancing. Hell, they outlaw laughter, no laughter. If you ever read the book Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco or see the film with Sean Connery, same thing. Medieval priest, 900 AD, saying, Christ never laughed. Laughter is not spiritual. You have to be stern and serious. God is angry. Well, maybe not, So I'm a musician and share that passion and that interest with you, Bob, And so maybe we're just biased, but I think few things are as spiritual as expressing your love of life, your celebration through music. And to play an instrument, listening is wonderful, but to even play an instrument, beautiful thing. Anybody else, Mindy? Did I lose Melinda?
I'm here. That's it for now. I did wonder about the clarification from Bob of that intense desire for a specific instrument. That seems like that can jump over into something that might or might not be fulfilled and fulfilling, as opposed to a general love of the satisfaction of music.
Oh, you see, I'm not sure that even falls into desire. I don't know. Because you don't possess an instrument to the way you would possess a car. You know, a car has a utilitarian value. Certainly, it gets you from here to there, but most of us buy cars for other reasons. Um, and then there are those that buy an automobile solely for its appearance as a showpiece. People uh, people will marry people only because they're attractive and become a trophy or a possession. So I suppose there is somebody that wants the guitar Eric Clapton played that sold for a couple of $1 million, and I've seen guitars go for millions of dollars, and a decent piano, Steinway, a lot of money, but there's a lot of work in building it. A husband of a friend of mine makes harpsichords. They're exceedingly expensive, but imagine handmade harpsichord in the 21st century. It's the music that you're after. The instrument is just that. It's merely an instrument. It's a means to an end to make beautiful music. So, and I'm not sure what you mean by specific, but you know, uh, there's so many different ways to make music. You can make music with a kazoo, with uh, tapping the drumming out a rhythm on the table with a couple of pencils, whistling. Just so many different ways to make music. Why limit ourselves to one or another, except for the proficiency? I remember as a kid seeing Sammy Davis Jr. on the Ed Sullivan Show. My God, he just blew my mind. That's why I remember it after all these years. He came out and he sang, and then he danced, and then he sang, and then he played the drums, and then he played the trumpet, and then he sang and danced. And I thought, holy cow, to be able to express myself that way, it was the first time I'd ever thought you could do more than one thing, you know, incredibly talented. So we have to express ourselves. That which is not expressed is repressed or suppressed and oppressed, and that's not healthy. It needs expression. Let music be a way that your heart expresses itself. I don't see a desire in that. Okay, well, then thank you. Uh, Again, I so love doing this class, and I appreciate that you're here and able to come as often as you can. We do post to YouTube, but when you're here live, it's so much more meaningful for me, and I'm sure for others. I'd like to get to the point where we can do some breakout rooms and you folks can get to know each other, because everyone that comes to a class like this is an extraordinary person. And if you could begin to meet each other and know each other, wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? So we do have the ability to do breakout rooms. I've never done it. I don't know how it works. we'll have to run and jump in the deep end of the pool together. And I don't know how it would affect the video, but let's give it a try. I'd like to do a few more classes and maybe grow the class a little before we do that, but that's my intention down the road. Also, I'm hoping you will do your meditation 15 minutes every other day minimum. That will create a change, 15 minutes or more every other day. And if you can do every day, that's wonderful. But at least 4 times a week for 15 or 20 minutes, just watch your breath. And again, the goal is not to concentrate, but to be aware when you lose concentration, and with a little smile on your face say, well, of course, that's what the mind does. Let it go as irrelevant and bring your attention back to identifying as the watcher, not the breather. And then we will come to a point where we can watch our thoughts without being the thinker, and watch our emotions without being embroiled in the emotional nature. And that is non-attachment. More on that coming up. More on emotional intelligence. Imagine never being angry again for more than a moment or two before you go, hold on. This is about me. This is my anger. This tells me nothing about the person that made me angry and everything about me. We'll start with anger and branch out from there. That's the king of the hurtful emotions. Thank you for being here. Namaste, aloha, and salam. And please unmute and say goodbye to everybody. And we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Aloha, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank
you.
Thank you and goodbye.